Hello folks, and welcome to our game here with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined today by Naoise Waldron. We're going to have Michael Ryan, former Waterford manager, on in a little bit of time as well. But we've had a fair old weekend, or certainly Sunday, I've heard, and we're brought to you by OurGame.com. Use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off. There's a huge range of absolutely brilliant items there, so go to OurGame.com, promo code OurGame. Naoise Waldron, you were doing, I think, radio commentary yesterday for Radio na Gaeltacht at the Leinster Tiddlywinks final between Kilkenny and Galway. And I say that because everyone's running down the Leinster Championship in recent times. But by God, you were fairly happy with that game, weren't you?
Yeah, I thought it was deadly. It was real enjoyable. Kind of like I was saying to you at half time, even while we were talking, it was like there was an awful lot of driving it and catching in the air, So even though both teams had a bit of a structure, like they seemed to be trying as best as they could to bypass the entire midfield any opportunity they could. So it was good. Six really good goals, really nice finishes. Some of them well worked, some of them, and then obviously dramatic. And Conor Whelan, I thought, just was brilliant. There was a few really, really outstanding performances. Obviously, he was man of the match now, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. A lot of high-scoring game, 6 goals. What more could you want?
Well, I'll tell you what more you could want. There was a young lad from Breda, actually, I don't know how young he is, but Breda in Down. He slipped on past security at the end.
He's calling. He's calling. Oh my God. That's
okay. You can see more of that video at the OurGame Twitter and YouTube pages as well. Some cheeky bio, isn't he?
I was actually watching him for ages. I was like, what is this lad at? And I was standing beside Tommy Walsh, and I goes, hey, look at this lad. And we were trying to figure out what he was doing, but the security actually let him out. He didn't sneak out. He was trying to get TJ's attention for ages. Like, he had a glove on him and everything. It was gas. It was actually pretty funny. That's a good idea for a stag, to be fair.
What did you think of the Kilkenny and Galway game overall? Now, look, I was just thinking, broadly speaking, with Limerick winning yesterday and with Kilkenny winning. Kilkenny won it, and to some degree they did it with the old guard. So Wally Walsh coming on, getting 1-2. Pádraig Walsh came on and got himself a point. And then, Killian Buckley, dream come true to score a goal like that. Whereas for Limerick, to some degree, it was the new guard who was getting it done for them. Adam English, he got a point for himself, and also, Cathal O'Neill, he got a couple of points as well. So it was the new guard in some way doing it for them. But what are you thinking with Kilkenny overall? To do it in that sort of fashion, that was celebrated far more vehemently than the last time you won All-Ireland in 2015 against Galway. Remember, people barely stayed around for that. I mean, it just shows what that meant by comparison, which is strange.
Yeah, and it was actually kind of cool as well. At the end of the match, the players stayed out in the field for ages and watched the highlights on the big screen. And then next thing, when Killian Buckley's goal was replayed, they all cheered and jumped again, and they were celebrating as if they were watching it live or whatever. So it obviously meant an awful lot. Winning a game like that is absolutely mad. I've been on either end playing as well. But yeah, I don't think and Conor, you're talking about the old guard, for Conor Fogarty had to start. Which was kind of surprising, I suppose, but he did well, did his job. But I don't think they could beat Limerick playing that way. And this was saying throughout the year and all, and with Derek Ling and Michael Rice and all, the way they have the team set up, it's to kind of go through the lines and use the ball and use possession well, because they know they have to mix it and vary it. But yesterday there was Mikey Butler's goal. I suppose they kind of did that, to just the 1-2 kind of passing between Blanchfield and Mikey Butler, and nobody seemed to want to tackle either of them for some reason. But it was an awful lot of it was, let's get it, bypass the midfield and get it into the forwards as quick as we can. And they had enough ball winners. I'd say nearly every single one of the forwards got a high catch. It was kind of nuts.
But
yeah.
Do you know TJ Reid? I'm pretty sure now himself and Derek McNicholas of Westmeath are the 2 record championship appearance holders on 80 each, because I'm pretty sure Marty Morrissey said on commentary that it's 80, and I know McNicholas came on in every game as well, which would bring him up to 80. that's fair going when you consider like previous years. People were talking about how amazing it was that goalkeepers like Brendan Cummins were getting up to 73 and Brick Walsh then broke it by going up to 76. But there's TJ and Derek McNicholas, who's on the road for 20 seasons now. Incredible stuff.
Nuts. And then like the other thing as well is like TJ wasn't a passenger yesterday either. I mean, he got what three points from play, deadly on the freeze. And he's kind of obviously he's not zippy fast or anything like, right. He's nearly 36 now, but like he seems to be in the right place at the right time. Does an awful lot of work, gets hooks in, gets blocks in, kind of picks up ball, goes crossways, whatever. Rarely makes a mistake in possession as well. So he's far from a passenger anyway.
Yeah, and what did you make of Galway going 8 points behind, pulling it back, being in a win position late on? And actually, even in the commentary, I presume you lost your mind a little bit when Killian Buckley's ball scuttered into the back of the net?
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, just one of them kind of things, like, because it was just nuts, like, because Galway had, it was a funny kind of a game where it was like ebbing and flowing a lot, where Galway at the first 20 minutes I was like, gee, because they could really bury Kilkenny here now. And then just first goal, Massey Keown's goal goes in and Galway fell apart and Kilkenny took over the game. And then next thing, Kilkenny get the gap, whatever, to 8 points, and Galway just clawed away back. And then Jason Flynn came in, made a massive difference, and obviously scored a goal or whatever. Connor Whelan started taking over the game. And Kevin Cooney then, who I think was nearly about to be taken off, scores a point, and then all of a sudden becomes a great ball winner and a great target man in full forward on his own. So they were going about it like, and a lot of people were kind of saying after that they thought Pádraig Mannion was really good, but I mean Owen Cody was probably Kenny's best forward, and they were marking each other. So
Mannion, like, and I think this will kind of tell you where I think the problems are for Galway at the moment. That they obviously feel that they don't have a marker for the full back line to go along with either. I mean, they don't want to take Daithí Burke out of the half back line and put him in the full back line. They have Grode McInerney back there for whoever they feel the bigger physical guy is. So then they're taking Pádraig Mannion, who has in the past been tried as a full back. Remember, he did the DDT on James Callan back in 2015 or 15 it was. And they obviously feel that they need to put him back there, so they don't feel that they have 1v1 defenders. And, we'll come to Clare a little bit later on and how, the struggles with Aaron Gillan. But I thought he did good a couple of times in the first half in particular. Remember, Cody had a run on him, and he did brilliantly to turn him back a couple of times, and eventually there was a dispossession. I thought he did as well as anyone can really do on Owen Cody because he's such an exceptional forward. And did you find it interesting afterwards when he said in his acceptance speech, there's plenty of hurling in Leinster? So you're taking it very personally there, aren't you?
Yeah. Why not, sure? Everything is very personal, sure, especially when it comes to hurling. We're so tribal. But I know it was good. It was like, it was good that he said it, like, and kind of remember I actually gave him man of the match in the All-Ireland semi-final in the club, and everyone was saying it should have been Joey Holden, but like, whatever, I gave it to Owen Cody. And he even said then when he got man of the match in the All-Ireland final, then he goes, "Are you sure this isn't for Joey Holden?" And everyone goes, one of these. So yeah, obviously Owen listens to a lot and takes things in. But I know, like, I love the way, like you were saying, kind of it's very hard to mark Owen Cody because I love the way he always goes with his hand, be it his right hand or his left hand. He's always going to catch the ball. Like he'll never be trying to like do this tippy tappy control-y stuff, like, and then bring the defender into the game.
Aaron Gillan does do a lot of the tippy tappy stuff, but he's so good at it. It's really hard to get to it.
Yeah, so he kind of uses his free hand, let's say, to kind of hold and control. He's that strong, like, to hold and control a defender, create a space, and use his hurling on like a wand, like. But Gillan then as well goes with his hand an awful lot too. But Cody is just class at it. And in the second half, he had an awful perfect patch there where I was like, God, Mannion was under awful pressure. But then, kind of Mannion was kind of coming in. But then, of course, it was him that gave the best kick pass you'll probably see in Croke Park this year to Killian Buckley. Whereas I know people are like, "I should never hurl." It's like, just stand on it or kick it towards the sideline. Don't kick it.
I think you're being very harsh, and you just want to get it out there. Come on, you've all done the same thing.
I know, but they had a million chances to get it out as well. Like when it was down the corner after a couple of people mishandled it, wouldn't you think Jay's just jumping the ball? Remember, like Brian Whelan did against Antrim back in, what was that, 2000 or Derry, sorry, back in 2001 when he had no hurls, so he just jumped on the ground on the slitter. and just delayed the game because Derry were coming in waves and they were on top of them. And, like one of them kind of things, like when you're in the corner like that, just jump on it, let the ref throw it in. And then
didn't they looked out of gas? I mean, Gerard McInerney made a couple of goals at swinging at the ball, and you could just see he was out of gas. I think maybe Joseph Cooney as well. It just so happened to be their players who were over 30 that were on the ball. And to be fair, look, the lads, they were trying their hearts out. But if you're tired, you're tired. What can you do about it? Nobody. Like even at one stage in the second half, remember that extended period of play between Limerick and Clare when they were battering the heads off each other. Gerard Hegarty looked to have just got a yard. And then he sort of maybe out of tiredness didn't strike the ball clear the way. Like, these are tough games to compete in.
Yeah, and it was absolutely roasting yesterday as well. This is the thing. And then on the field, obviously, it's hotter. So, like, like it was just one of the, because the two games kind of finished like that, where it was all this fumbling for possession. Now, I know there was fouls and stuff in the Clare and Limerick game, which were kind of a bit mad. But, like, yeah, it was like it fell out of McInerney's hand, then it fell out of Cooney's hand twice, and then it was on the ground. And Mannion, Colin Mannion got a good block on TJ, who kind of fumbled it as well. And then you're kind of going, just get it out. But it just so happened it falls to the fellow with no hurl who kicks it across, and literally Killian Buckley is standing like that, and it goes into his fingers. And as soon as he caught it, I was like, he's going to bury this now. Like you just knew. And again, like probably a few people were probably surprised that Killian Buckley was coming in, and should look like he scores a goal, and they all went mad like after for a long time.
Yeah, and I suppose the way it worked out with that scramble on the sideline, it just dragged all the traffic away from the most dangerous part of the pitch, really, didn't it? Because everyone got drawn towards it, and John Donnelly did brilliantly to knock the ball across. For Killian Buckley, with the amount of injuries he's had, like he was an All-Star back in 2015, if I remember correctly. All the injuries he's had, I'd say this is kind of a huge reward for all the rehab and work he's had to do on his own in the meantime.
Yeah, and sure, this is the thing. This is what you do it, like I suppose. Like, and how many times do you be practicing this situation when you're pucking against the wall, and you're like, whatever.
No, and I practice clearing
it. You're practicing just driving it, where you're kind of going, Kilkenny are 2 points down, All Ireland final ball, whatever. You're in it, bang, and it always ends up in the back of the net, like But it was. To be fair to him, well now, right? He hasn't played in the forwards much at all for Kilkenny. It was a fairly cool finish that he gives the dummy with the left, takes a couple of steps, brings it in just a little bit extra, and then like there was lads crisscrossing in front of the goal, and he puts it right down into the corner. And I was kind of trying to see in the replay, did somebody that ran across get a kind of a hurl onto it, like, and just slightly tap it even more into the corner? But I couldn't tell in the replay.
Let's call a spade a spade. He mishit it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, big time. And do you know what the other thing? So number one, it was doubly crucial, Pádraig Mannion losing his hurley, because obviously number one, he couldn't just lift the ball and drive it. Number two, Buckley sidestepped him and he went to dive with the hand. He might have got a block in if he had his hurley. So it's just, I mean, Buckley did what he needed to do. Balls in the back of the net. He's the hero. Nothing can change that. But, we're kind of looking at the small little margins. He slightly mishit it, I felt. Mannion didn't have his hurley. And come here, speaking of Mannion, Cathal Mannion playing that sort of deep role where he was kind of midfield but kind of dropping and sweeping. And Wally Walsh's goal in the first half, unbelievable catch over Fintan Burke, who's no slouch in the air. Solos on, and Cathal Mannion was coming back, but eventually Wally Walsh pulled away from him a little bit. And I wonder if Cathal Mannion was fully fit and he didn't have hamstring injuries bothering him. Like, you'd expect Cathal Mannion with his speed to get that hook in or catch up with Wally Walsh, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and there was a couple of times that when Walter had the ball in the second half as well, like the goal, obviously, like, but in the second half as well, he was tearing away from lads up the sideline. I was kind of going, what year is this? Like, just looking, I was like, whoever was supposed to be marking him couldn't, whatever about trying to stop him catching the ball in the air, but couldn't actually keep into him. But Cathal Mannion, if he was fully right, he probably would have caught him. But then there's other things, like kind of sometimes when I be watching Galway, you kind of go, God, is Cathal Mannion nearly too far back? Do they need somebody like him kind of further up the field and adding to the scoreline? Because he just, I think, like, he's such a good hurler, like, obviously, and it's great to have him back there and he uses the ball well and stuff, but he actually made one or two kind of howling mistakes yesterday on possession. But
crossfield stick pass into somebody's legs, through traffic. It was very unlike him.
Yeah, and where John Donnelly, it nearly ended up as a goal chance. Like, you're kind of going, what was he? Anyway, but I just think they're kind of probably taking something from their game, having him that far back. Because yeah, if you come back for a while and then go up and be back for a while, don't be just back and stay back, kind of, you know, because he's just such a good hurler, and he's usually, you know, it's like Adrian Mullen. Let's say losing Adrian Mullen, you're losing probably 4 or 5 points per game. You're probably taking away 3 points per game when Mannion is that far back, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, and like you mentioned Adrian Mullen there, I'd argue he's, you know, alongside Adrian Mullen and obviously, Owen Cody, and of course still TJ Reid, Kilkenny's best player. No Richie Reid, no Mikey Carey, who's obviously been drafted in. He picked up sort of an injury as well, which makes it all the more crucial that Kilkenny got through the front door here and all the way to a semi-final, rather than having to go through and play the winners of Tip-Offley, then a semi-final, and maybe you're losing more lads to injury rather than getting lads back. So I think that was huge for Kilkenny, and obviously a bit of a disaster for Galway as well, that they now have to turn around and face that. Another thing I was going to say, though, some of the players there that really impressed me, I thought David Blanchfield catching a couple of balls over Joseph Cooney, who'd gotten 5 from play against Dublin, didn't really impact the game. Tom Monaghan didn't really either. Conor Cooney, quiet again. Hugh Lawler as well. At times I wonder, right, because he's so good at commanding the square, absolutely brilliant performance again. But with Conor Whelan scoring 1-6, and he really does know how to lock down Conor Whelan, was there a temptation to bring him out? But you understand why he minds the square at the same time. But by God, you have a couple of high towers back there in that Kilkenny defence now, and it's starting to look pretty good back there.
Yeah, and like the thing, I was doing like a pre-game thing with Cathal Moore on Saturday on Radio na Gaeltacht as well, and we were kind of talking about who do you think is going to win, and I said, oh well, sure, look at, because Mikey Butler's probably not going to be playing, and Mossy Keown probably won't be playing, and Adrian Mullen is going to be out. I think Galway will probably win. But then Mikey Butler played and Mossy Keown played, and they each scored a goal. So I look like a right clown. But
that was before you went on the radio.
But Blanchfield, like, I don't know how many catches did he get in the air. Like, he was just, any time they went long and high, he seemed to come down with it. And actually, to be fair as well, Tom Phelan, the other end in the forwards, I was very impressed with his aerial ability and kind of the danger he posed when he was in possession and all, and the work he did, because he didn't play much at all during the league, and he did far better than I thought he would. But yeah, between Hugh Lawler, Tommy Walsh was probably under pressure a few times, but then got in with a couple of really good, like, kind of blocks just on the ball, or like a last second hook and stuff. And you know, Mikey Butler obviously was good again, scored a savage goal. So the defence is kind of coming good. Paddy Deegan was back. He started centre back, with Conor Fogarty being pushed into midfield. So, you know, and I mean, Paddy Deegan, like Conor, I think he was marking Conor Cooney. It was kind of hard to tell, because sometimes Conor went in and was isolated in full forward, and Hugh Lawler, and I kind of thought, geez, this might work. It didn't at all. And Paddy Deegan looked very comfortable back centre back. There was nothing coming through the middle, which is always a great sign if you're playing centre back or full back. And there was, even when Hugh, like you were kind of saying there, like, he commands it really well, but even when Hugh was just in his own one-on-one, he wasn't like screaming and roaring and telling lads to come back like you probably would be. He just seemed to be like, right, look, if it comes in, like, I'm going to have to go and get it. And he did really well. He's after becoming a rock solid fullback, I think.
Yeah, because I thought, like, a few years ago, he, you know, because he was so slender and obviously needing to fill out and all that kind of stuff, now he's just like a massive unit. He's an octopus, arms and legs everywhere. Is he the best fullback in the country?
I don't know. I don't know. That's he's probably not far off it now. Whereas a few years ago, you would have said no. Whereas it's great, like, that he is improving all the time. Like, because when JJ was gone, you know, they tried how many lads, you know, at full back, and then next thing they were like, it seemed to be like, right, well, here we'll throw in Hugh there, and he was good, but then there was times like Limerick and stuff, and, you know, against Tip maybe as well, and you're like, oh God. But then the last couple of years now, he's been rock. He's an animal. Like, he is an animal. And like you said, anytime Conor Whelan is in him, he seems to handle him. And I thought the way Galway used Conor Whelan was really smart, where he was outside in front and then getting onto the breaks. And the amount of times he broke onto a ball, and then you can't stop when he has the momentum going that way. Whereas Hugh, up until then, had been kind of closing him down. They moved him out. So is he the best fullback in the country? I'd know, because there's an awful lot of good fullbacks now. You know, that I think anyway. So yeah, he's probably up there, right? Top 3, top 4 anyway.
Yeah, he's up there with I suppose Owen O'Donnell. Would you call Sean Finn a fullback? I mean, he wears number 2, but there's a bit of a fullback. Dan Morrissey's obviously excellent as well. Who else are we missing there? Conor Prunty's excellent.
Yeah, see, I'd say that would be my top three anyway.
Breen will get there.
No,
if he'd been put there 6 years ago.
Yeah, you love the Mikey Breen fullback, way. But that would be probably my top three.
Ultimately, wasn't they proven right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Throw enough at the wall, it'll soon stick. Sure. The sun even shines on a dog's backside some days, I suppose. But yeah, that'd be probably my top three. Would be Hugh, Owen O'Donnell, and Morrissey.
Yeah. I was just thinking afterwards that TJ Reid, Owen Cody, they were part of a Ballyhale team that lost in heartbreaking fashion to a last-second goal a couple of years ago against Ballygunner. So they know the other side of the coin. So that would have been I suppose that's part of why they celebrated it so hard, because it happened in such circumstances. But for Galway, just looking at their scores, Evan Nyland, he scored 4 from play and 8 frees. Conor Whelan, we mentioned, won 6. Brian Kincannon scored 3, including his third one, which put them 2 points up, and he probably thought that was the end of the road there, and they were going to claim their first title in 5 years. Kevin Cooney, excellent, bit of a coming-of-age performance with the 3 points. Excellent down the stretch, I should say. Jason Flynn, nice goal. But how tough is it going to be for Galway to pick themselves up? Like last year, they faded out in the last 20 minutes against Kilkenny in the Leinster final, and Henry Shefflin was almost at a loss to explain what happened afterwards, and he was kind of a bit deflated with the fade out. This time they didn't. They lost in heartbreaking circumstances, but at least he can go in and feel very proud of what his players produced in defeat. So can they pick themselves up again for Tip or Offaly in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I suppose.
Sorry, not 2 weeks, in a week.
Yeah, so it's hopefully, you would hope so, because it'd be awful to kind of.
Sorry, it is 2 weeks. Obviously, Tip and Offaly is this weekend.
Yeah. So I suppose it's good that they have the 2 weeks, but it has to be kind of parked now, basically Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever they go back training. It has to be parked now. That right, look, we're 1 game away from being where we wanted to be anyway in the All-Ireland semi-final. So you have to win the game. You have to put that behind them. And I mean, last year was. It's funny, because last year they were awful in the Leinster final. They were terrible. And then this year they were really good, but then just got like he had up on the thing there, like the Buckley dagger, and it was like literally that is what it was. They just got stabbed in the heart last second, game over. You're kind of going, and they all collapsed to the ground in real dramatic style. You're kind of going, God, that's a killer. But the thing is, there's a bigger prize at stake here. Get back to training, get back to doing what they were doing well. Forget about the game. Well, don't totally forget about it, because they let in 4 goals. You cannot be letting in 4 goals and think you're going to be winning championship matches.
Well, is that the problem with playing an attacker as your sweeper?
See, maybe this is the other thing, maybe. But they were just too open. And then say even for Mikey Butler's goal, so Blanchfield catches the ball, passes it to Butler. Butler gives it back, and then Blanchfield gives it back. Why did nobody tackle one person? And they're running the whole way up the sideline. Run over and knock them over the sideline. Do something. Meet them somewhere. And then I think it was it Dahi Burke or McInerney ended up and he kind of didn't know whether to, go or stay or swivel or what. And you're kind of going, just go to him. It's a corner back. Go and see what he's going to do with the ball when you go and meet him. And even if you just wrap him up, and give him a clumsy free or whatever, it's better than letting him shoot at the goal. They're going to have to sort out the defence, definitely. But other than that, I think, park it, do it, concentrate on what they did well, improve the defence, and they could be very dangerous this year, I think.
Yeah, the likes of, I think, Tom Monaghan and Joseph Cooney are going to need to have bigger games. And Conor Cooney, it's like at this stage now, he has had a quiet season. He's been an excellent player over the years, and St. Thomas's, he's done so much with them, but he needs a big performance or two. And it's going to be a big one the next day out, whether it's against Tip or Offaly. Obviously, everyone expects it to be Tip. But I thought it was interesting, the attendances at the 2 games yesterday. Officially, anyway, at Croke Park. And look, maybe a lot of the boxes weren't filled or whatever, because there's 10-year tickets sold there. But officially, it was announced 24,483. There was 43,756 at Clare v Limerick. I just wonder, people couldn't get to both games because they're both on Sunday, one after the other. I would have loved to have gone to both games. Did that hurt attendances as well? Because a lot of people were like, well, I'd like to get to Kilkenny Galway, but I also want to see the other one. So I'll just stay at home and watch them both on TV.
Yeah, in some ways it's like I can see why they do it, but then it like that it does take from the attendance, especially for the Leinster final, because now the other thing as well is it was a glorious sunny day. People are probably like, hey, let's just watch the two games with a couple of drinks on the TV, handy out, deadly. Because yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe if you started rotating them, that they were on the same weekend, yeah, but one Saturday, one Sunday. I thought that'd nearly be better. Like as in for people to try and get the boat and pack it out, because like I don't know what it looked like on the TV now and all, but you're kind of going like 25 or 24 and a half, whatever, 24,500, 25,000. It's actually a decent crowd, but then in Croke Park they're all lost. But then I have the earphones on. So the crowd sounds really loud in my ears, like, because they're obviously mic'd up and it's elevated in my ears. But yeah, I think it does hurt it. A sunny weekend like that, you know, lads probably just didn't bother going. Like, simple as that.
So anything else you want to say about this team, this Galway team, where they can go, trying to get Concannon, Cooney, Whelan, Nyland, and I suppose maybe even Jason Flint, get them all firing on the one day. Cathal Mannion too as well. Potentially they might look at moving him back into the forwards, but maybe it's a little bit late in the year at this stage and they'll just keep him where he is.
Yeah, like I like the way they're set up in the forwards. They're very smart what they do. They kind of, when they're defending a puck out, they're all kind of up and nearly in the normal kind of 6 positions. So they're not letting anything go short. And then as soon as it goes long over their head, well, now, Limerick might be different, or if Tip or whoever they end up playing might be different, the way they set up or the way they puck it out. They might go short, but Kilkenny just weren't going short against them. They just said, no, we're not going to risk that. We have enough ball winners. Let's go over the top. And as soon as it was pucked, they all turned around and ran out, except for one. So one would stay in full forward, and everybody else was outside the 45, right? And then so it would be one. And this was the thing, so it'd be one in the backs or it'd be one around midfield or whatever. And instead of trying to use possession and work around and move, they'd strike it. And then everyone would come like a train and onto breaks and swarm around and get on. And that's how, like, Conor Whelan scored his goal. He got 2 points, I'd say, from it as well. Concannon got a couple of, at least one off it as well. And Nyland I thought Nyland was really good yesterday. I really like watching him play as well. Savage, obviously, long range frees and free taking. But then even from play as well now, yesterday he got a couple of nice points. He was in the game a good bit. Concannon kind of was in it, then out of it. And then when it was important, like you said, he got the point to put them 2 up, and you kind of thought, that's a win in the game there now. Fair play to you. But just look, like, the thing is like, I think from like midfield up, they did as well as they probably could have. They definitely scored enough to win. It's just, like I said, and you know, we've been talking about, you cannot concede 4 goals. Like, it's, you know, it's 12 points. Like, you know, it's very hard to overcome 4 goals. So yeah, it's tightening up the defense, and I think the 4 best teams were probably playing yesterday. And again, look, they were the 4 semi-finalists last year as well. Because Galway, again, and we always say this, on their day, they're as good as anyone can be, but they need to tighten up the defence, and they need Conor Cooney. If he's going to be starting all the time, they need Conor Cooney playing well again.
Okay, delighted to say that Michael Ryan, former Waterford manager, joins myself and Naoise now. How are you, Michael?
Not too bad at all now.
Good stuff.
Michael,
what did you make of Galway against Kilkenny?
Well, I suppose it's the same old story, wasn't it? Kilkenny found a way to win the match and Galway found a way to lose the match. And I'm really sorry for Galway, because they played a lot of good hurling in the second half, and they fought their way back and came from 8 points down and put themselves in a winning position. And, you know, you couldn't see any of the result for 2 minutes with 30 seconds to go, but the ball out of the corner flag, 2 Kilkenny players surrounded by several Galway players, and yet the ball was walked into the middle and they created a goal chance. So that's Kilkenny. Never give up, fight to the very end, give their everything and believe in themselves. And I think maybe the biggest difference between the 2 teams was the belief. Kilkenny believed they could pull it off, and they did. And maybe there was a bit of doubt in Galway's mind, but you'd have to be sorry for Galway, no question about that.
And do you think Galway can come back from this? Obviously, it's Tipperary or Offaly in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, I think that there's a big test for them now, because there's no doubt about it. There will be some damage, mental damage, psychological damage to Galway after that. But having said that, they've a decent record against Tipperary, assuming, of course, that Tipperary beat Offaly. I mean, you shouldn't take that for granted either. I'd expect them to beat Offaly, but I think Galway will bounce back. It's going to be an intriguing quarter-final now, there's no question about that. And there's a lot at stake, and I think the 4 teams in Leinster semi-final were mentioned, but I wouldn't rule Tipperary out of this equation either. Tipperary could have a big say in this championship.
I hope you're right with that one, Michael. We've talked a nice bit about the Leinster final at this stage. Just before we move on, I might mention that the Tailteann Cup quarter-final draw is Antrim, Carlow, Meath, Wexford, Limerick, Laois, Cavan against Down. Naoise, I'm sure you want to talk loads about football. You've been such a big football man. But we'll
Games development officer, sure, in both codes.
Yeah, fair enough. So we'll move on to the Munster final. Limerick 123, Clare 122, Aaron Gillambit 111, 8 frees and 1-3 from play. Tom Morrissey and David Reedy scored 3 apiece. Tony Kelly with 6, 2 of those were frees. Mark Rogers with 1-2, Aidan McCarthy with 4, 3 of those frees. Michael, we'll start off with you. What did you make of the game? Limerick have now achieved 5 in a row, first time since JBM led Cork in 1986 in what was his last ever Munster game. What did you make of Limerick? What did you make of Clare? And what did you make of the game, Michael?
First of all, a fascinating contest. Absolutely brilliant game of hurling from start to finish. Really enjoyed it. It ebbed and flowed. And at the end of the day, I suppose we spoke about finding a way to win. Limerick found that way to win again. And, Clare had a lot of chances. And I know they'll point to a free they probably should have got at the end. But they had several chances before that, there was a stage when they looked as if they were hell-bent to getting a goal when they could have popped 2 or 3 more points. And, of course, there was a miraculous save by Nicky Quaid as well. I haven't heard anybody highlight that save, but that was an absolutely fantastic save from close range. And the proof of the pudding and the save was how quickly the ball came off his hurley up into the air. I mean, the ricochet off his hurley, and it was a really good shot. But Nicky Quaid got his hurley to it, and that was probably a game-changing moment. But look, I really enjoyed the contest from start to finish. It was a fascinating game, and again, it probably came down to Limerick's composure. Even their goal, when you look back in their goal, the ball was played in to Aaron Gillane. He took it around his man. Seamus Flanagan, who had a very quiet game, it has to be said. He made a wonderful run across kind of a decoy run, and his man was in 2 minds. And then Gillane got the shot off the ground into the back of the net. And it was Limerick at their very best. They find a way to get the ball to the man in the best position. And there's a lot made of the fact of the clear marker. The guy was on Gillane. But having the quality of the ball coming in was so good that I don't know could anybody defend it, and that's exactly what Clare do, or what Limerick do. They find a way to walk the ball into the channels, and then they pop the score, and they're so composed, and they never panic, and they never deviate, and they have a system that they absolutely trust. And why wouldn't they trust it? Because they've won, as we found out, they've won 12 finals doing that. They won Munster 5 years in a row now, and 4 All-Irelands and 3 league finals. So that system is in place and it works for them. But the composure of Limerick versus the absolute tenacity of Clare. And if I was Clare, I'd be very disappointed to lose the match. But there's a big kick in this, and who's to say these 2 teams won't meet later on in the championship? And if they do, Clare will be right there.
Yeah, to be fair to Clare, the energy they put into this, incredible stuff, and the way they got after Limerick, you'd have to credit them. In terms of composure, though, their shooting efficiency was 44% compared with Limerick's 62%. So 23 out of 52 compared with 24 out of 39. In a 1-point game, that's just so decisive. And just to come back to the Cian Nolan and Aaron Gillane thing, yes, absolutely, there was the ball going in meant it was an impossible job for Cian Nolan. But you could see after a while, he got the yellow card, the head dropped a little bit. I feel tough on the, Smith O'Brien's player. It was a really tough day for him. But I would say Brian Lohan mismanaged the situation. Now, Michael, I'll come back to you because in a minute, because you obviously have managed at the highest level here. But you could, Brian Lohan got this badly wrong, leaving it like this for so long. He had different options. Bring on Paul Flanagan, Shane Amori. He took off Aidan McCarthy, one of your key lads. He could have put him wing back and put David McInerney full back. There was options there, Naoise, and he kind of stayed looking at it way too long.
Yeah, and he kind of has a record of doing this as well. Even last year against Kilkenny, he was watching a couple of defenders far too long, I thought, in the semi-final. So yeah, and you would think, wouldn't you, as a full back, to play full back all his life, wouldn't you recognise what was happening, and you need to change something up, especially after a yellow card, because obviously he's going to be targeted then, even worse than he already was being. And as far as, I agree with you, totally agree with you there. He probably got this one wrong. And, Gillane, to be fair to Gillane, it was brilliant that he got man of the match yesterday, because when they lost in the group game, it was probably his frees that were the difference. He missed a couple of frees, and then they lose by a point, whereas then yesterday he's man of the match and they win by a point. So he was obviously going to be really up for this game, Munster final as well, obviously. And but yeah, from a Clare point of view, you'd have questions. You'd definitely have questions about some of the decisions there.
Yeah, Michael, what are your thoughts on it? And look, you've walked the line. You know what it's like being in a manager in a stadium full of people.
Yeah, I suppose you could say there was a case for maybe starting Shane O'Morey or Paul Flanagan. There probably was a case for doing that. But having said that, even with all that happening, it still came down to the chances they missed, and they missed a couple of frees as well. There was a couple of calls made, but at the end of the day, I mean, everybody can judge it when it's over, and everybody can when the final whistle is blown.
Everyone was screaming as the game was going on. He seemed to be the only person in the stadium and watching on TV that didn't think that this change had to be made. Like, it was a really bad error from.
Yeah, it seems. In fairness, yeah, you'd have to question it. No question about that. But he seems to be a man. He makes up his mind about something. He's not for changing, as Margaret Thatcher once said. He's not for changing, and he seemed to make a decision, and he was going to go with it regardless of what happened. But certainly it did have consequences, there's no doubt about that. And I'd say it'll be interesting when he looks back, when he and his management team look back at it, will they see it as an error? Because from the outside looking in, it certainly didn't seem to work. And again, taking off the free taker, and there was a few other things happened during the course of the game as well. But even allowing for all that, they still had chances to win the game. And that comes from, and they didn't take those chances, and that comes from the experience Limerick had. You never felt Limerick were going to lose the game. And they've been involved in a few tight games this year. When it comes down to the final stretch, when there's a point to do in a game, you always feel that Limerick have that composure. Clare don't have that. And, the rest of the championship is going to be huge for Clare now, because beating 2 Munster finals, both games they could have won. Didn't perform in the knockout stages last year. So there's a huge challenge for Clare ahead, and a huge test. And they only have a couple of weeks to get ready.
Yeah, and I think when you've been through those battles so many times, that you don't get the white line fever. You kind of retain that composure, and that's something that we saw from Limerick again in this game. And they really are quite incredible at getting the job done when they're under highest of pressure. And seeing their young lads too. Adam English, who of course lost his uncle Alex the day before, very brave of him to go out and perform like he did. Peter Casey came off the bench, got the job done. Cathal O'Neill also. So all these players stepped up. So they were like those players who didn't seem to be used quite as much at other times in the last year or so. And I'm thinking specifically the Tip game, when the likes of Adam English was left on the bench and Colin Coughlin, who came on here. Like, Michael, they really did have to dig into their bench with no Sean Finn, with no Cian Lynch. They're bringing in players that, Graham Mulcahy's starting again. Richie English is coming on again. They're really digging into the panel here, which is a great sign of what they have.
And in fairness, they are, you're right, and Adam English under 20 player this year, and Colin Coughlin was playing last year under 20. And he's not afraid to do that, in fairness. John Kiley and his management team, and I like to use the word management team because it's all about the group, they're not afraid to take off the big names. They're not afraid to take chances. They're not afraid to make big calls when it has to be making. And even the course of this year's championship, Cian Lynch has been on and he has been taken off, and the road has been taken off, and that probably comes from the experience of winning as well. And they're used to being in this situation. So and they're blooding a few of those fellas now too. And the signs are ominous for the rest of the teams around the country. They're strengthening their panel. They're testing what they've got. They know exactly now they can throw these fellas into the heat of battle. And there's not much bigger games than a Munster final when it's in the melting pot. So he's coming along nicely. And again, it's there's always somebody in Limerick will pop up and do the job for you. I mean, different players. Declan Hannon went off. Now, that is a source of Cut 7 going forward. I think that's his third championship game coming off. He's an absolutely vital cog in that. And I think, Shane, we spoke earlier on this year about the vital players on the Limerick team. I said about the goalkeeper, absolutely crucial. Declan Hannon was another guy, because not only is he a captain and he's a leader, but he's also seems to find a way to lock up that defence, and he's a very good communicator, and he's well respected. And the other player we mentioned was Aaron Gillane earlier on this year as well, and they're absolutely crucial. But Limerick are finding new ways, finding new players, blooding new players, and it can only be good for Limerick, because they're already a very formidable side, and there was a couple. I mean, to lose Sean Finn, we all wonder what happened with Sean Finn, and I still think they're lacking a bit in the specialist mark or cornerback. But having said that, they're getting by.
They sure are. And if you look at the two games, there was 5 minutes of injury time in the Leinster final, and Killian Buckley scores the goal 75 minutes 13 seconds. So the time had elapsed. And you look at the Munster final, there was 4 minutes, and there was over a minute played by the time that last puck out came out. And let's call a spade here. There wasn't one, but 2 cast iron frees that Clare should have had, which would have given them an opportunity to level it up, Naoise.
No, I wouldn't say the second one was a cast iron free, because in my opinion, he'd taken a lot more than 4 steps. But the first one was, I mean, how the first one was missed. I mean, it was a frontal charge. Peter Casey, it was an absolute frontal charge. There's no question about that. And that was a definite free. But look, I suppose, that sometimes you need a rub of the green as well. You need a little bit of luck, and you need a bit of... But then again, I'd always argue you make your own luck. But when Clare look back on it, they'll certainly have a lot of regrets.
Naoise?
Yeah, and even before that, you remember Tony Kelly's point as well? And because we were watching it in the press box, and it was like the way he broke onto it, he had all the momentum going towards goal, and then he just tapped it over the bar. And I was kind of going, gee, keep going. And somebody said, does Tony know what the score is? Kind of thing. I was like, God, but yeah, like, look, and I know people will always say, like, it's hard to referee matches and this and that and the other, but there's just there's too many big calls like that being missed lately. And that one was as blatant, I thought, as blatant as you could have gotten. And the ref was right there. It was right up the front, like into his face, really, as well. And just right up the middle, bang, Polex on the ground. And everyone kind of stops and looks, and the ball is on the ground. And then, no, it's play on. All right, come on. And because remember before that, somebody had got William, and even actually at the very end when the ref blew the whistle, William O'Donovan, like I thought, fouled your man as well. He wrapped him up and took him to the ground, and the ref blew the whistle, and they all looked, and then next thing, all of a sudden they realised, oh, that's the end of the game. It's the final whistle, not a free. So I don't know. And another thing now as well, Clare will have to deal with. Everybody seems to be fairly battered and bruised after you play Limerick, and it's very hard to physically recover from. It's like that thing that the San Francisco 49ers had that record in the NFL that anytime anyone played them the following week, they lost all something like 12. They were like 0-12. And like Limerick seemed to have the same thing. It's like you play Limerick, you put everything into it, and then it's nearly impossible. If you don't win, it's nearly impossible to get ready within 2 weeks for the next game. So I think they could be under a bit of pressure against Dublin. That could be shaped up to be a right game now.
Yeah, if Limerick go on and win a 4 in a row from here, considering every single day teams are putting it up to them, putting everything on the line, it will be absolutely incredible. And they really are having to dig into the panel, as we're saying. Michael, in terms of Clare, do you think that they'll suffer the same hangover as they did last year, or the fact that it didn't go to extra time? And yes, it was heartbreaking, but maybe not quite as bad as last year. Do you think they can come back? They'll be playing the winners of Dublin and Carlow in the quarterfinal.
Well, the next game now is the big test. If they were to win the next game, I think they'd be in a very good position. But, Dublin, you can't take Dublin for granted. That game would possibly be in Croke Park. You can't take that for granted. And, O'Donoghue, he's a shrewd operator. And Dublin have showed glimpses and flashes of what they can do. I always feel they mightn't have enough stick work to beat the big teams. And, their hurling mightn't just be up to that. But in a quarterfinal, they'll fancy their chances. And is there some mental damage done to Clare? We'll only know that when the ball is thrown in the quarterfinal, and that's of course assuming that Dublin come through. I mean, you can't take any team for granted in this championship, because Dublin, they might find that game a bit of a struggle. You'd expect them to win it, but if Clare are to come through the next game, they'll then be in the semi-final. I think then we'd probably see the very best of Clare, but I would be very worried and very wary about that next game.
Yeah, and like with Dublin, it's more the lack of forwards than anything else. Well, myself and Naoise have obviously played in Dublin for a lot of years, and that tends to hold the team back a little bit. But Naoise, a comment here from Colm Lyons Blind Spots saying, lads, please touch on Hegarty yellow. What are these umpires seeing or imagining desperately bad? Now, I did think he got caught as he was going down. I think Cian Nolan kind of with his side caught him on the head. I don't think it was intentional or anything. But, Hegarty did dump Hogan on the ground, who was obviously looking for it a little bit. And people think, Hegarty's nearly getting targeted in the opposite way. Like, he puts in for it a lot himself. He's no angel. But I did think that it was probably his reputation preceding him a little bit there.
100% it was. And the thing there, what I really didn't like about it was that Nolan goes into him, and then Hegarty picks him up and flips him up, right? You see it all the time, right? But flips him up and picks him up, and then starts throwing his hands out and looking for stuff as if, I'm just walking past and I got dumped on my head there by Hegarty. It's like, no, if you're putting in for it, take back what you get. Don't be throwing your hands up and looking for someone to get booked and looking for him to get in trouble and this and that. That's what I don't like. I've no problem with lads obviously engaging with each other and going at it a bit. Like it's a bit of crack, and that's what you want. Like your full back line and then your forwards not obviously backing down. But this whole thing of throwing hands in the air and going down and holding yourself down the ground, like he got kind of flipped with an arm under his leg and he lay down the ground as if he had been clattered. And then his hands are out and he's, look, that's what I didn't like about it. It could have just been brushed aside, and just said, look, the two lads were just at each other and leave it off. Like, I thought the yellow was a bit harsh for it. But, I mean, according to the rules as well, I suppose, you can't just grab someone by the legs and flip them upside down either. Like, but, it happens, like, so. But I didn't like the whole, I'm going to target him and then play it up as well. I hate that part.
Yeah, that's not something you'd associate with Clare, though, in fairness. They wouldn't be known for that, or it wouldn't be in their game. But I thought it was a harsh booking myself. It seemed to me as if it was a sin of us to pay for sins in the past, and I really thought it was a soft booking because, and in fairness, if that had been allowed play on, I mean, Limerick were in a real goal scoring opportunity again, so I think maybe the referee, with the benefit of hindsight, when he look back on that, he'll say, I possibly should have left that go.
After the game, Brian Lohan said, we found it very hard to get frees. We've always found it hard to get frees. We just don't have the power and influence that other teams have. Michael, would you think that that's something that exists in the GA, and is it something that's a problem for Clare? Is he right?
I think maybe it does to a certain extent, but I didn't feel that yesterday. I mean, I thought the referee as regards giving, was only 25 frees in the entire game, and I didn't think Clare were harshly done by in that aspect. I mean, go back to what I said a minute ago about that last incident. If the play had been left goal, Limerick had a clear goal scoring chance. So I didn't see it that way. Limerick had a couple of, what Clare need to address is they had a couple of frees and missed them. And if you're going to win at this level, you have to have a 9 out of 10 free taker. You watch TJ Reid all day long. I know he missed a simple one enough yesterday, but TJ Reid for the last 15 years has put virtually 95% of frees over the bar. The great teams have really good free takers. And I think Limerick wouldn't be overly happy with, they missed a couple of frees yesterday as well. And even the fact that Aaron Gillan didn't take a free about 55 metres out, Diema Buns came up and took it from the other side and missed it as well. So free taking is such a huge part. But I honestly don't think that Clare have a case. We certainly yesterday as regards that. I don't think the referee got too many calls wrong as regards that yesterday.
Did you ever feel as Waterford manager that you didn't get calls that you might have got if you were, let's say, one of the traditional three, if we just put it that way?
Well, every manager will feel, when his own team is playing, because the old adage bias comes in, and we're all biased as regards referees on our own team. I'm sure there was occasions we felt we could have got him, or maybe should have got him, but overall I can't remember any real blatant efforts by referees. I think overall referees are pretty honest. But yesterday, going back to that calling in, that free at the very end, the thing that amazed me about it is, but they're all mic'd up now. You have linesmen, you have the assistant, you have the fourth official, you have umpires. They're all mic'd up, and from to miss that, at such a vital stage of the game, that's what I'd be more worried about. That shouldn't be happening. And Naoise said a while ago again, there's been some big calls missed, and but overall, I have to say, I think most referees are honest enough guys, and they make genuine mistakes, and we should allow for that too. But yesterday was, in my opinion, a grievous error.
And then to be fair, in the Leinster final, then Sean Stack, to be fair to him, like I thought refed it perfectly. But then again, I suppose he was helped. There was no real controversial or no head-high tackles or there was no real decisions to make. But like he refed it the way it should have been refed. You didn't even notice he was there most of the time. Like so.
But I wouldn't quite agree with that. I mean, I thought there was a different standard of refereeing in both games. To me, the Leinster final, there was a lot of tip-tap frees early on. I thought he blew things that didn't be blown. And maybe that's the kind of a guy he is. But then again, the consistency is what's lacking in referees. Some fellas leave everything go, and more fellas pull. Early on, there was a lot of soft frees given in the Leinster final as well. But again, he's an honest guy, Sean Stack,
that's a big thing. That's actually funny you say that, the tip-tappy ones. They're the ones that they always give in Dublin, in club hurling in Dublin. And like, you're just kind of, even both teams sometimes would be looking up, see what's going on. And it's like, oh, it's a free in or it's a free out. What? And then next thing you'd get away with kind of far more physical stuff. And you'd be kind of going, cheers, I just got tripped or whatever. But that is the way he refs it. Yeah. I'm just used to it, I suppose.
Yeah. Michael, just the Clare half forward line, and there was lots of great displays for Clare, don't get me wrong, but for long spells they failed to get David Fitzgerald into the game. And by the way, Cathal Malone I thought was excellent again. They couldn't really get Tony Kelly into the game for long spells, and he still scored 4, but a lot of the game he wasn't really there. Aidan McCarthy was rather quiet as well. What do you think it is about this Limerick team, the way they managed to lock up the back line and don't have the acre of space in front of the full forward line like poor old Clare did at the other end? What is it that they're doing that's allowing them to shut down half forward lines in this manner?
Well, first of all, going back to the way Clare lined out and Tony Kelly. I mean, Tony Kelly seemed to start the game too close, in my opinion, too close to the opposition goal. And I think against Tipperary again, if I'm not mistaken, did he win on top of Carl Barrett at the start of the game? And to me, Tony Kelly needs to be out the field. He needs to be on the ball. He needs to be in space. His best work is probably 50, 60, 70 yards from goal, floating left and right, because he's very hard to pin down. But Limerick have such a system in place that everybody, it's almost as if they do zonal marking, that they are. You know, if somebody's out of position, somebody else covers them. If Diarmaid Burns goes forward, the wing forward comes back and covers them. That's why they're so successful, and that's why they're so good. And I suppose it comes down from games and years and minutes and hours of playing together. They know exactly what's happening. And I mean, Paul Kinnock is rightly acclaimed as being an outstanding coach, and also Alan Cunningham as well. Like I would have worked with in Munster a few years ago. So that system is in place, and probably comes down to experience. And they know where the danger is. They sense danger, and they get fellas to cover off those channels and those avenues. I mean, yesterday's game there was loads of space in front of the Clare full back line, loads of space. I mean, the Clare half back line gone way up the field. Loads of space, ball came into Gillen. That doesn't really happen with Limerick. They seem to be able to drop back, and of course, Declan Hannon is pivotal to the whole thing because he sits in that pocket. Now, John Conlon had a very good game again, but he doesn't seem to have the same ability to cover and sense danger as Declan Hannon does. And I put it down to Limerick's experience and over the years, and they have a system in place. They trust the system. Everybody knows their role, and even when the young fellas coming on, they're so well versed in what needs to be done. And they find a way, and they trust themselves and their instinct. And if you ever watch Limerick on the pitch as well, the players are really, you can hear them roaring at one another. The communication seems to be very, very strong as well. And that probably comes with experience and winning.
And Naoise, it's 5 in a row for Limerick, which is obviously a brilliant achievement for them. But Clare have only won 6 Munster titles ever, which is hard to credit really when you consider that, obviously they're a big hurling county. 6 ever, haven't won it since 1998. So is there something in the psyche whereby, it's just hard to get over the line in Munster for them?
Maybe, but I mean, they're after getting beaten 2 years in a row by one of the probably best teams that's ever played hurling. So they're not that far away. Like, this is the thing. It's like, the idea is to be as competitive as you possibly can and try and get there as many times as you possibly can. But then, unfortunately, you might come up against this Limerick team. Like, if they were coming up against different teams, or say, let's say ordinary teams at the time, they could have been winning Munster last 2 years in a row. So I don't know. I don't think it's a mentality thing, because again, like, look, they got them to extra time last year, lost by a point this year. It's just, they had enough hurling done to win. It's just their conversion rate yesterday was awful. Like, it cannot, again, like Galway conceding 4 goals, you cannot have a conversion rate that low and expect to win a game. They just missed too many chances. It's as simple as that. And I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think it's a mentality thing. I don't think so.
And for Limerick, of course, it's important that they have that bit of time, much like Kilkenny, to get players right. And one of those before the semi-final is Cian Lynch. Kylie said afterwards, Cian, in fairness, has done really well the last 2-3 weeks. His injuries taken a lot longer for him to recover from than any of us might have expected, but he had 2 serious injuries back-to-back last year. All I know is that his trajectory is very much on the upward curve, and we now have a fantastic opportunity with Cian to take him to the next level in the next 3 weeks. I'm sure you're going to see him in Croke Park in 4 weeks' time, and by God, a hungrier player won't be on our panel in 4 weeks' time than Cian Lynch will be. So they're still the team to beat, Michael. There's no 2 ways about it.
Yeah, just going back on Clare, Naoise said they won 6 Munster finals, and believe it or not, the first one they won, they actually got a walkover from Kerry. So, I think that was back about 80, 90, that's a while ago. But I shouldn't be reminding Clare folk that, because, I had a huge respect for Clare hurling. But, yeah, look, Cian Lynch, but, the biggest thing, even the greatest players of all time, if you lose your edge or lose your confidence, And, the last couple of times Cian Lynch came on, maybe his confidence was down. He suffered a couple of serious injuries. And to me, he's a magician. He was the best hurler in the country when he got injured. And he's tried to come back a few times since. But having him on board will be key, because there's still an awful lot of hurling left to be played in this year's championship. And people saying Limerick this, Limerick that. Go back in last year's championship. Limerick won was it the final by? Was it 2 points in the semi-final by a point, or vice versa? So there's never been much in it. And also, a sending off, an injury, a fluky goal. There's a lot of things can happen. But I think John Kiley will be just really happy to get 4 weeks now and prepare and fine tune. And in Croke Park, they'll be very difficult to beat in Croke Park, because they're so familiar with playing in front of 60, 70, 80,000 people, and they'll know that if the game is in the melting pot, they've won before in these circumstances. So, I mean, they are the team that everybody will have to work hard to beat, but I wouldn't contend this year's championship. It was over, and John Kiley is certainly far too shrewd a guy to allow that happen.
K32 says, Clare blaming the ref, loser mentality. Naoise, who are your favourites from here, your sort of top 3 from here in terms of the All-Ireland race?
God. You'd probably have to say, because again, like, they get straight into the semi-finals, Limerick, Kilkenny, and then you're talking, now, how do Clare and Galway react, and then Tipperary, then Dublin, obviously, you'd have it kind of in that structure. But it all depends on how Clare and Galway react, I think. On their days, they're the best 4, I think, in the country at the minute. Like last year, obviously, they were the 4 semi-finalists. I think this year as well, like the 2 matches yesterday were good old games, very, very different games. And, I don't think Kilkenny or Galway could hope to beat Limerick playing that way. So I still think Limerick are the favourites, even with the injuries. And like, if Cian Lynch comes back and starts firing on all cylinders again, like they'll get better again. So I think probably the way I'd have it now would be Limerick, Kilkenny, Clare, Galway, then Tip, I suppose, then Dublin, and then Offaly, Carlow. So it all depends, I think, totally on how do Galway and Clare react in the next week.
Michael, what would be your sort of running order in terms of favourites at this moment in time?
Well, I think at this point of time, as we speak, Limerick and Clare are probably the 2 best teams in the country. Having said that, Tipperary versus Clare, you give Tipperary a chance of winning that. Tipperary versus Galway, Tipperary versus Kilkenny. Tipperary are still very serious contenders.
I think have to go so Offaly, Galway, Clare, Limerick. Offaly, Galway, Limerick. That's a very tough route just to get to a final.
It is, and I mean, to be honest, Tipperary gets Waterford. I couldn't believe that they were so much off the mark. They were a million miles away in that particular game. And in fairness to Liam, he called it after the game. He said it was a hammering or a hiding, whatever you want to call it. So they'll have a lot of soul searching to do, and they have 7 or 8 fellas on that team who've won a lot of medals. So I'd expect Tipperary to bounce back. Would Tipperary beat Limerick in a semi-final if they got there? Not so sure they would, but they're certainly capable of beating anybody else. But for me, it is Limerick are the team. Clare could have a big say, and of course you can never rule out Kilkenny, because Kilkenny have done this thing a million times, but they haven't won an All-Ireland since 2015 now, and some of those fellas have been around a while as well. Even they depended on Walter Welsh yesterday. He came on, and didn't he make some contribution for a fellow who's not playing regularly? Didn't he produce some performance? But that's exactly what they do, and Jerry Clean will get the best out of them. But for me, Limerick are the best team around, and the other 2 contenders, I think, are Clare and Tipperary.
K32 says, Shane crying over Limerick winning the 5 in a row. Love it. Any comment about Hego should have been awarded a penalty due to a clear goal scoring chance and black card? No, because there was other defenders over as well. And also, I feel like I'm fairly celebrating Limerick here. Am I crying over Limerick winning 5 in a row here, Naoise?
Well, you were all cribbing. I seem to be the only person in the press area there that was hoping Limerick were going to win that game yesterday for some reason. Everybody was up for Clare.
Because you didn't want Kilkenny and Limerick to end up on the same side of the
that didn't even cross my mind. That didn't even cross my mind, because I actually thought Galway were going to beat Kilkenny yesterday. I didn't think Kilkenny were going to win. So that didn't even cross my mind. Michael, you are crying over Limerick.
Michael, I don't think we chatted since Waterford got knocked out of the championship. Overall, what's your read on it? And, there was that victory over Tipperary at the end, so it kind of sort of reframes it a little bit.
But from Waterford's point of view, I think they'll be very disappointed with the championship, no question about that. Played well against Limerick in the first game. And I don't subscribe to Davies' theory about, they had 2 bad half an hours. For me, we saw the real Waterford playing against Tipperary. Just went out and played. And there was too many tactics, there was too many different things put in place. Waterford are a team that play at their very best when they're almost off the cuff. And when the reins and the leash was taken off the last day, played really, really well against Tipperary. And I didn't think they were going to win that game, but in fairness to them, they turned around. So I think we still have a lot of good hurlers in Waterford. And Mark Fitzgerald has come through, and Patrick Fitzgerald, and there's a couple of more Fitzgeralds there as well. There is some good young talent in Waterford, but I hope that when the Waterford management sit down at the end of the year and to review the whole thing, that I think, looking forward, that we can't, this is not a game of PlayStation. You can't just put so many restrictions in place. And remember somebody telling me that Wexford had 17 different puck-out strategies. Now, how true that is, I don't know. But I think, you need to step back from it and let the players off the leash and get them right and let them show exactly what they're made of. And I was delighted with Waterford played against Tipperary in the championship. And very poor against Clare, no question about that. Even though in the first half of that game, they were right in the game. But I think Waterford have a lot to look forward to. But the management have got to sit down now and have a good look at it and see what works and what doesn't work. And if something doesn't work, don't be trying it. I see around the country, I see different situations. In some cases, it appears as if managers and managements want to make it look as if they won the game rather than if the players won the game. But at the end of the day, the game is and will always be won by the players. And you just can't put so many restrictions and some tactical stuff in place. You've got to prepare the team and then let them go off and play. And if that happens, Waterford have a decent future. And, I think they're in a much better place than people think.
Michael, you mentioned 17 puck-out options that Wexford had. Do you know how many Limerick have, as in pre-planned?
I don't know.
Zero.
But that's because, in fairness now, not many counties have a keeper of the calibre of Nicky Quaid. And I've said this before repeatedly. Nicky Quaid is absolutely crucial and key to the whole thing because, he's able to scan the field in 1 or 2 seconds. He's able to make good decisions. And then he's able to, he can drive the ball 120 yards. He can drive the ball 60 yards at 4 foot off the ground into a fella's paw. He can do all those things. So, this is probably easier. And with also tie in Limerick's experience and their composure and everything else, and Nicky Quaid, and the trust and the belief and the confidence they have. And then you have the complete package.
Absolutely. Naoise, anything else before we move on from that?
I saw Pádraig Gill's comment there now.
Well, read it out though. Could not see the pick of Galway and Kilkenny keeping it pucked out to either of Limerick or Clare. Different level.
You must have been watching the championship last year then, Gill. At all. You mustn't have been. But Waterford's thing, so what Michael is kind of talking about there, right, is Waterford, loads of deadly hurlers, loads of real skillful hurlers in the backs and in the forwards, right? And there has to be a structure, and there has to be a game plan, but there also has to be a freedom within the game plan. And as a coach and as a manager, you have to recognise that, that you can't have Desi Hutchinson, your best forward, your best goal scoring threat, out midfield, running around and going side to side and getting, and you'd kind of go, geez, did he even get possession? But he does get possession, but then because of where he is, he just has to hand pass and release it immediately. So he's only in possession for about 10 seconds in total in the match. So it's I really hope they kind of look back over the year and realise. And another thing as well is I thought when Tadhg de Búrca went down and was out, right, get a new centre back and make it be Jack Fagan and have him centre back, or realise there again that we're not winning ball in the forwards. Maybe we'll put Jack back into the forwards and have him as an outlet, right? Because you can't just have this. It's not like Michael says, it's not a PlayStation game. It's not a maths equation either, right? You can't just go in with the formula in your head and think that the players are going to suit the formula. It's yes, you can have a formula, but it has to relate to the players. Say that Patrick Fitzgerald there from Ballygunner, you can't have him playing in some rigid structure where he's, no, he could play obviously, and he plays in a system with Ballygunner obviously, but he's so good and so skillful and so free flowing and all, that you have to kind of allow him to do like Tony Kelly and Clare. You kind of nearly have to allow him to play the game the way he sees it, even though he's really young. Desi the same, but then also that they fit into a defensive kind of setup at times, say defending puckouts, defending long range frees, defending sideline cuts, etc. But then from then on, when we're in possession, lads, find the space, go where you need to go, get the overlaps, get the moves, whatever it takes. But they're far too rigid, and they just look really uncomfortable the way they're playing, I thought.
Sometimes you wonder actually what's going on, because I was at the Cork-Kerry football game the weekend before last. I was down in Buckley for that game because Waterford were playing football, and we had a club. Michael Ryan is one of our club, and he was captain of Waterford in the football, so we went out to see it. But when the half-time whistle blew in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, every single Kerry player was inside their own 45. Clifford on several occasions was back in his own half-back line now. Now, if you're managing the opposition, where do you want to see David Clifford? You want to see him back in his own half-back line, because he's absolutely no threat there. So sometimes I wonder what's going on, and it isn't just holding up football. I mean, this has to be some kind of a managerial thing that, people are coming up with tactics, and sometimes I wonder, is the plan to make sure we don't lose the game rather than we go and win the game? Yeah. And go back to and that's tied into what you said about Dessie Hutchinson. Dessie Hutchinson's best position on the pitch is within 30 metres of the other goal, and get the ball into him that goes into Gillane. That should be our priority. Fellas like him, Patrick Fitzgerald as well. We have a number of those fellas in Waterford. But, having them way out the field is exactly what the opposition want.
And now, I won't ask you if you think he should or shouldn't, but do you think the mood in Waterford is that Davy deserves another season, or what's the vibe that you're getting around the place?
Well, I think there needs to be a good review of it, and certainly a lot of supporters aren't happy, but I don't wonder if supporters ever happy. And look, I have no problem with that management team going forward, but they've got to learn the lessons. The lessons have to be learned. What we tried this year did not work. There's no point in buttering it up any other way. It just simply doesn't work, and it was never going to work to make it worse. So, if the management team sit down, and I include all the management team in that, if they sit down and assess it, it's also good to see Peter Queally down the line the last day beside Davy. I've never seen a situation where the manager is on his own the sideline. Peter Queally is a good guy. And Kelly, those guys have an awful lot to offer. But when they're miles away from you, I wonder, can they make the contribution that needs to be made in the course of the game? But from Waterford's point of view, if the lessons are learned, and if things change, and that system cannot be allowed to happen again, because that just doesn't work. And it will never work. And that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my opinion, that'll never work. But we have a good team, and we have good players. We just need to let them go and play.
And Michael, I suppose before we let you go, what are your thoughts then on Cork and Wexford, whose seasons are also over? Where do you think they're going?
Well, Cork will be very disappointed, and it was, people say Cork made progress this year, but if you look at the real maths of it, Cork qualified last year. They came out of Munster last year, so this year they didn't come out of it. A little bit unlucky. I think they have a lot of good players, but having said that, Patrick Horgan is pushing on, Seamus Harmony is pushing on. They seem to be finding a couple of good young fellas coming through, and what I like about Cork is they seem to be much more physical nowadays. They're not pushed around the place. They're up for the fight, and again, they love us as players. There's 650,000 people in Cork. Now, surely to God, there's always going to be 25 good hurlers in Cork and 25 good footballers. What's happening in football in Cork, I just fail to understand. So Cork and I like Pat Ryan. I think he's a good guy, and I think he's got a bit extra out of him. But there's a big 12 months coming up for them. From Wexford's point of view, I just don't know what happened to Wexford. And I've no bones about saying that I was disappointed to hear Davy Fitz talk about emotional problems in Waterford. We had 2.5 really good years under Liam Cahill, and no question about that. We might have got it wrong for the Cork game last year and didn't play in the last game, but that should be acknowledged. We had 2.5 really good years with Liam Cahill, and talking about emotional levels. I'm just wondering, are Wexford a bit confused about all the tactical setup they had for a couple of years as well? And did Darragh Egan actually, did that fall into his lap? And maybe Wexford's problems go back over a couple of years, even though I'm led to believe a lot of Wexford players were mad about Davy and he was there, but certainly there's a few questions to be answered down there as well.
Naoise, any final point?
Wexford again, their conversion rate, even in the league too, it just isn't good enough. It's just simple as that. And then the Westmeath, this is the other thing as well now. If they'd have beaten Westmeath the way it worked out, they would have come out of Leinster, wouldn't they? So they were 17 points up and missed a penalty. And then just the way they lost to Westmeath just is inexcusable, really. And they'll know that, like Darragh Egan, Niall Corkin and the players, they'll all know that as well. But like you're talking about scars and stuff from previous managers. I mean, like Conor McDonald, for years we were watching him out around the middle of the field as well, and then since he went back in full forward, where he always should and only be, I think, inside the full forward line, winning ball, has the skill. There's nothing can beat a ball winner like that, especially one that can hurl.
Shane O'Donnell.
Right? What?
Shane O'Donnell as well.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, but this is the thing that it's no accident that kind of some of these lads are starting to get back into form, whereas then there's, like we were talking about, Waterford lads are too far away from the goal. It's like, lads, there's a pattern here. There's a bit of a pattern here. And so, look, anyway, and then Cork, which you look at, they're after winning how many under-20s there in the last couple of years, and there's a few lads not under-20 team from this year. Not that I liked the way they won the game against Offaly, but there's a few lads in that team are coming through, are very good. And I'd be, from a Cork point of view, I'd be excited. But I'm very happy with where Cork are, to be honest.
Yeah, and Michael, that Cork, like you were involved with Waterford under-20s this year, so you know what's coming through in Waterford, but you probably also got to see close up as well what Cork had in the last couple of years. Like, there are big players coming.
There's a bit of hysteria going on about Waterford hurling. I mean, we played Cork this year in the first round of the championship in Cork. We were beaten by 4 points. We had 4 wides in a row when the teams are level. We missed an open goal. We played Limerick. We missed 3 1-1s with the Limerick. 3 1-1s. I mean, so things aren't maybe as bad in Waterford as people say. You know,
they should have beaten Tipperary despite being down all the Fitzgeralds.
Yeah, but there's something else I think I need to say. I mean, what we started training this year for the under-20 championship on the 2nd of January. Now, I'm led to believe that's the restriction from Croke Park, that we couldn't start training until the 2nd of January. And the Waterford County Board, in fairness, they adhere to that strictly. But we were hearing tales from our players in college of other counties started training in October and started strength and conditioning. They had 3 months extra preparation in Waterford. Now, if that is so, one of 2 things need to happen here. We need to start breaking the rules like every other county, or else every other county needs to be met to the line. Now, I'm not sure is that the story, but so I would contend that things aren't as bad in Waterford. And you talk about they haven't won a game in underage. 2 years ago, I was a Waterford selector with Gary O'Keefe. We beat Tipperary by 10 or 11 points up in Park O'Keefe, up in Parky Ring in the Munster Club Championship. So things aren't quite as bad. But if other counties start training in October in Waterford, we need to start breaking them rules and start doing the very same thing.
Yeah, and that's just the facts of it, Naoise. I mean, you know, there's the reality. There's everyone can talk and, you know, kind of sound like they're being nice and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, winning is, you know, you have to do what you need to do to win.
I'd be nearly, I can't believe that was a rule there the 2nd of January, because I'd be nearly 100% sure that there was other counties and lads that I know were back with the 20s in November, definitely. So I couldn't believe that, because I remember thinking as well, going, God, November is very early for under 20s. But yeah, like it just, I mean, people have been breaking the rules forever and always. All them, you know, winter training ban and stuff, and even during COVID, or even during lockdown, lads were training together. Like, so, just I don't know. Like, people adhere by some rules in GA, and then they kind of, some of them are grey, but then some are black and white, and then others they're just yeah, it's a rule, but no one really cares. Like, so I would say, yeah, like Waterford, stop trying to be nice on that rule and do what needs to be done, because the size of them Cork lads for under 20s, there's no way they were only in the gym in January. No way. And the way they were
problems as well, you know.
They do, yeah. Sure, we all do, but I don't look like Micheál Mullins or Ben O'Connor.
You like coffee pops too much.
I don't. I promise.
Okay, well, look, lads, really appreciate you joining us.
Just one thing, Shane, before we go. I just Teddy McCarthy there. They happened to be in Croke Park when he won those 2 All-Ireland finals, and what a guy, like, and what a character, and some of the stories about him, and it was a great story. So Andy Daly told a great story about winning the 2 All-Irelands down in Cork, and a fella said to him, I fell over the road 2 in a fortnight. But what a competitor, what a player, and, you know, and great memories of him up in Croke Park, and suspending himself in the year, and such a down-to-earth guy as well. And, you know, I mean, to be remiss of us not to mention him, because one of the all-time greats, not just as a player, but as a character as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So say all of us. Well, look, lads, really appreciate you joining us, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just kick you out there. Thanks very much, Michael. Right, so that's it from the lads and the hurling. Just to run through some of what happened in the football over the weekend, and a reminder, We are brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame, you'll get 15% off. By the way, if you want a fundraiser run for your club, email events@ourgame.ie and we'll give you details on that. If you want to get the audio podcast of this show as well, patreon.com/OurGame. Loads of coaching videos on there as well. In the Tailteann Cup, Down, they beat Longford 120-112, and I think Longford were 5 points up in the first half, and Joe Hagan had a goal chance when they were ahead, so that could have been crucial there. Conor Laverty said afterwards, we lacked a wee bit of energy. I don't know if that was nervousness. People looking in from outside probably think we hadn't a lot to gain from today. And that was actually Mickey Donnelly who said that. Maybe that's why there was a wee bit of flatness. Our boys were deadly nervous before the match. They just felt an awful lot of pressure. When you see the Division 4 teams winning, teams coming away from home winning, we had an awful lot to lose. Pat Havern, he scored 6 points there. Joe Hagan with 1-3 on the other side. Laois beat Fermanagh 111-19. Ryan Jones got a red there. Billy Sheehan said afterwards, the Laois manager, whatever about me being abused, I don't care about that. But there was a county board meeting there 2 weeks ago where clubs literally said that the team were finished for the year. Then online, it's just unfortunate the abuse that the players are receiving from people who don't even come to the games. We have a very loyal following. It's brilliant to see the loyal following. It's small, but sure, that's the way sport is. I'm just delighted for the players. It really means nothing to me. They can keep abusing me all they want. It doesn't bother me in the least. I'm just really disappointed for our own people in the county to target our players like that. We were 7 points up against London. We had about 100 supporters, and then all of a sudden everyone makes comments about the players afterwards. Roll on the abuse in the next few days. We'll be ready to go again next week. Mark Timmins scored 1-1 there. Paul Kingston scored 3 points. Carlow beat New York 15 points to 10. Very tight in the first half, but Carlow took over. Obviously, very interesting side plot with former Laois footballer Shane Bulger playing his first game for New York against Carlow, where his dad Jim is chairman. And this is on the same week when Shane's brother Ross signed for Idaho State in college football as a kicker. As well, I just wonder with New York and the amount of money that it costs to travel over, do New York, get the return on that? Is it worth it in terms of the exposure and so on? And you know what the end goal is with the huge outlay and the fundraising that have to do, or maybe they have people who are financing it over there, because there's always great people supporting the GA over in New York, and I spent a summer over there, and a lot of great people over there involved in it. And then the other fixture as well, Wexford beat Offaly 122-214. Mark Roster with 1-4 there, Owen Nolan with 4 points. Anton Sullivan scored 1-1 for Offaly. And just to confirm once more, the Tailteann Cup quarter-final draw sees Antrim against Carlow, Meath against Wexford, Limerick will play Laois, and then Cavan will come up against Down. So that's it for the show today. A couple of more comments coming in before we finish up. Can we agree that the funniest moment of the Munster Championship was the tip crowd all looking into their phones and Thurles cheering on Limerick? And plenty more going on as well on the comments, so keep those coming in. And if you have any other things that you want us to talk about on Thursday's show, get on to us, leave comments, follow us on YouTube, all of that, and we'll see you on Thursday. Again, audio podcast will be at patreon.com/OurGame.